The house was dark except for the faint glow on my laptop screen, still open on my desk. A sinking feeling gripped my stomach before I even stepped closer. The email was right there, staring at me like a loaded gun. Subject line, last night winking face. My fingers felt cold as I clicked it open. And there she was, Olivia, half-dressed, sprawled across a hotel bed, her arms draped over someone who wasn't me. The smug look on her face was like a knife straight to my gut. More pictures, more proof. Every click was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. My hands clenched the edge of the desk, so hard my knuckles turned white. The sound of tires crunching on the driveway snapped me back. Olivia was home. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The door creaked open, followed by the click of her heels on the floor. Ethan, her voice was sweet, fake, like nothing had happened. Rage surged through me, burning away the disbelief. She was about to find out just how much I knew. I didn't even get up to greet her. The door slammed shut behind Olivia, her heels clicking against the floor like a ticking time bomb. She paused in the hallway, probably expecting me to rush over, wrap my arms around her, and ask about her day, but I just stood there, frozen, my eyes still locked on the screen. I could feel the heat building in my chest, but I forced myself to stay still. She walked into the room, her usual smile plastered across her face. "Hey, babe, I'm back," she said, tossing her purse on a counter. For a second, I almost couldn't say anything. How could I? My mind was a whirlpool of emotions, from anger to betrayal to a sickening feeling of hopelessness. But I couldn't let this go. I wasn't going to let her walk in like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just humiliated me. Without turning away from the laptop, I spoke, my voice colder than I had ever heard it. "You've been busy, haven't you?" Olivia froze. A little laugh escaped her lips, forced and nervous. "What's that supposed to mean?" She took a few cautious steps toward me, but I didn't move. I pointed at the screen without looking. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Last night. Who is he?" The words left my mouth like venom, dripping with the fury that had been building up for days. She didn't flinch, didn't even look at the screen. Instead, she smiled again, but this time it was different. A sneer almost. "You've always been paranoid, Ethan. I told you I was out with my friends. You can't trust me to have a little fun without you questioning every single thing I do." The lie was thick in the air, hanging between us. Her voice was so calm, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. But I wasn't buying it. "I'm not stupid, Olivia," I said, slowly turning to face her. "I don't need to ask when I already know." For a moment, she just stared at me. There was this brief flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared, replaced with something colder. "You're just upset. You always blow things out of proportion." The nerve. She was standing there, telling me I was the one overreacting, when I was the one left holding the shattered pieces of our marriage in my hands. I was about to say something, but she continued, her voice rising with every word. "I can't believe you're doing this. After everything I've done for you, you think I'd just throw it all away for someone else? You're just trying to start a fight." Her lies were getting worse, but I couldn't stop her. My mind was racing, trying to find the words, the right way to make her understand. But how could you make someone understand something they didn't feel the slightest bit guilty about? I shook my head, disgusted. "I saw the pictures, Olivia. I saw it all. And you're still standing here, acting like nothing happened." She stiffened, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down, to confess. But instead, she laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they've been caught, but they don't care anymore. "So what? You think one night with someone else means something?" She stepped closer to me, her eyes narrowing as she crossed her arms. "You're such a bore, Ethan. You never wanted anything fun. Always so serious. Always so predictable." Her words hit me harder than anything she could have physically done. "Fun." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think sleeping with someone else is fun?" Olivia rolled her eyes, turning away. "You wouldn't understand. I've been living in your shadow for too long. I needed something to feel alive, to feel wanted. But you wouldn't get that, would you?" I could feel my chest tightening, but I didn't let her see it. Instead, I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. I wasn't going to beg her for answers. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. You've been lying to me for months, haven't you? I asked, my voice low and steady. You've been seeing him behind my back, and you didn't even have the decency to tell me the truth. She didn't answer right away. There was a brief flicker of hesitation, but it was gone in an instant. I didn't think it was any of your business, she said, her tone dripping with arrogance. You've never been the man I needed. Always too busy, always too focused on your work, your problems. What was I supposed to do? Wait around for you to finally notice me? The hurt stung, but it wasn't enough to break me anymore. I had already seen the truth, and it was too late for her to deny it. You think you're the victim in all of this? I asked, my voice rising with frustration. You betrayed me, Olivia, not the other way around. She smirked. Poor Ethan, always so dramatic. Get over it. I'm not sorry. You're not worth it. I felt my hands ball in a fist, but I kept my composure. I couldn't lose control, not now. You'll regret this. One day, you'll realize what you threw away. She laughed again, as though I were nothing more than a joke to her. Regret? Please. You think I'm going to miss a boring, predictable life with you? I couldn't stand it any longer. Her voice was like nails on a chalkboard, and the truth was clear. She wasn't the woman I had married. She was someone else entirely, someone I didn't recognize. Without another word, I turned and walked away. The door slammed behind me, but I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The image of Olivia's smug expression, the way she stood there and tried to brush off everything we'd built, it replayed in my mind like a nightmare on loop. I kept thinking back to everything she'd said, every justification, every excuse, how she painted herself as the victim in her own twisted little world. It made me sick. By morning, the rage had only intensified. The thought of going through the motions of pretending everything was fine made my skin crawl. I wasn't the kind of guy to throw a fit in front of people or make a scene, but Olivia had pushed me to the edge. I could feel it now. The urge to confront her once again, to drag the truth out of her no matter how much she tried to avoid it. She had it coming. I found her in the kitchen, humming to herself like nothing had happened. The morning light cast a soft glow on her, making her look even more distant, even more alien. I couldn't even recognize her anymore. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stranger who only cared about herself. Are you really this unaffected? I asked, leaning against the doorway, my voice strained. Olivia looked up, her eyes briefly meeting mine before glancing away. What do you want now, Ethan? It was almost as if she'd forgotten about the night before. She was too busy with her own life, too busy pretending like everything was still normal. But I wasn't going to let her sweep this under the rug. Not anymore. I want you to explain yourself, I said, taking a step into the room. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I wasn't about to back down now. What happened to us? To our marriage? She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took her time, wiping the countertop as if we were talking about some trivial issue, like whether to buy the blue or the green towels. We're fine, Ethan. It's not like we were happy anyway, she said, barely glancing at me. You're just overreacting. Overreacting? She was the one who had betrayed me. She was the one who'd broken the trust between us into a million pieces, and she was sitting there acting like it was all my fault. You think you can just dismiss what happened like it was nothing? I asked, tried to keep my voice steady. You really don't care, do you? Olivia finally looked at me, her eyes narrowing. Why would I? You've been so wrapped up in your work, your stupid problems. I had needs, Ethan, needs you couldn't meet. She sighed, as though it was all so simple, so clear. I was bored. I wanted excitement, something to make me feel alive. And you couldn't give that to me. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Bored? Was she really that shallow? Was I really that invisible to her? Everything I had done for her, every moment I had sacrificed, and it wasn't enough. You're unbelievable, I muttered, pacing the room in disbelief. You couldn't have talked to me? You couldn't have told me that something was wrong? Instead, you just went behind my back, sleeping with someone else. She didn't seem fazed. I don't owe you an explanation. You've never been there when I needed you. The audacity of it all. My hand shook with anger, but I held back. I worked my ass off for us. For you. And this is how you repay me? With lies and betrayal. Olivia crossed her arms, her expression still calm, almost dismissive. Yeah, you worked and I waited. But you never really saw me, did you? She leaned against the counter, her tone softening just a bit. I wanted more. I wanted someone who actually saw me, who appreciated me. And he did. The mention of him, the other man, was like a slap to the face. I didn't know who he was, but I could feel the bitterness rising in me. Who is he, Olivia? Who is the guy you've been sneaking around with? She shrugged, not even a hint of guilt in her eyes. Why does it matter? He's just a guy, someone who makes me feel good, makes me feel wanted. That's more than you've ever done for me. I could feel my blood boiling. She was so casual about it, so indifferent to the pain she had caused. How could someone change so drastically? How could she be so selfish, so blind to the wreckage she was leaving behind? I don't know who you are anymore, I said quietly. You're not the woman I married. The look she gave me was a mix of pity and amusement. You're right. I'm not. And I don't think I ever was. That's when it hit me. All this time, I had been fooling myself into thinking she was the one. I had invested so much into this relationship, so much into her, but she had been playing me the whole time. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the manipulations, the way she made me feel like I was the one who wasn't enough. Do you even care, Olivia? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer, but the look in her eyes said it all. No, she didn't care. I turned away from her, walking out of the room, the weight of everything settling on me like a ton of bricks. The anger was still there, but it was slowly being replaced by something darker, something that felt worse than any rage, disappointment. I had to make a decision. I had to decide whether I was going to continue living in this toxic shell of a relationship or finally walk away. But before I could make up my mind, I heard her call out from behind me. Where are you going, Ethan? You can't just walk out. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She had already made it clear. There was nothing left for me here. The weight of my own footsteps echoed through the house as I walked away from Olivia, from everything. Each step felt like I was leaving behind not just her, but everything I had ever believed about us. The foundation of our marriage, everything I thought we had, was gone. I could feel the space between us widening, like an abyss I couldn't bridge no matter how hard I tried. I reached the front door, my hand on the handle, but something held me back. Part of me wanted to just leave, to escape this nightmare and never look back. But another part of me, the one that still clung to some hope, told me I needed to confront this head-on. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. She wasn't going to walk all over me, pretending like I didn't exist. I turned around and walked back into the living room, where she was still standing. She hadn't moved an inch. She was just there, acting as if none of this had changed her, as if she could pretend everything was normal. You think this is all just a game, don't you? I said, my voice low and steady, trying to keep the fury inside me in check. You think you can treat me like this and expect me to just accept it? Olivia's eyes flashed with irritation. What do you want me to say, Ethan? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? Because I don't. I took a step closer to her, unable to hold back the words any longer. You're a liar, Olivia. You've lied to me for months, telling me everything was fine, that I was the one with the problem. And now you're sitting here, acting like you did nothing wrong. She tilted her head, as if she were genuinely confused. I didn't do anything wrong, Ethan. I wasn't happy, and I needed something. I found it. So what? I don't owe you an apology. Her words hit me harder than any slap ever could. I could feel my stomach twist, the pain rising in my chest, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let her win. Do you even know what you've done? I asked, my voice trembling now. You've destroyed everything. You've taken everything I thought I knew about us and burned it to the ground. She rolled her eyes, dismissing my words with a casual flick of her hand. Oh, please, Ethan, get over yourself. I'm not the one who messed everything up. You were too busy with your work to even notice me, to care about what I wanted. Don't act like you were perfect. I felt the anger boiling inside me again. This was who she was. This was who she had become. A selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about her own desires, who couldn't see the pain she had caused. You have no idea what you're talking about, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I gave you everything, Olivia. I gave you my time, my love, my loyalty, and you threw it all away for a cheap thrill. That's what this is, right? Just a game to you." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. She just stood there, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, like she was daring me to say more. Like she was daring me to confront her lies one last time. I don't even know why I'm still standing here. I muttered under my breath, more to myself than to her. But Olivia heard me. "Because you don't have the guts to leave," she shot back, her voice laced with contempt. "You think you can just walk out and pretend it never happened? You're too weak for that. You'll come crawling back." I didn't respond immediately. She was right. It would have been so easy to walk out the door and pretend none of this had happened. It would have been so easy to let her continue to lie to me, to let her think she could get away with everything. But I wasn't weak, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. "You don't know me at all," I said, my voice steady now, cutting through the tension. "I'm done. I'm done with you and your lies. You don't get to play me anymore." Olivia's face twisted in anger. "You think you're the victim here, don't you? Poor Ethan, who's been so misunderstood. But the truth is, I'm the one who's been stuck in this miserable marriage, waiting for something better to come along. You were never enough for me." The words cut deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like someone had ripped out my heart and stomped on it. But I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I couldn't give her that satisfaction. "You're not the woman I married," I said quietly, but firmly. "You're not even the person I thought you were. I don't know who you are anymore." She shrugged, her expression unbothered. "You'll get over it. You'll find someone else, and you'll forget all about me." But I knew that wasn't true. I couldn't just forget. I couldn't pretend like it was all okay. The damage had been done, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I turned around and walked toward the door, the weight of her words still lingering in the air behind me. I wasn't going to stay and argue with her anymore. I wasn't going to beg her for answers or explanations. She had made her choice. She had made it clear she didn't care about me, about us. And that was the final blow. As I opened the door, I heard her call out one last time. "You'll regret this, Ethan." But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had already made my decision, and there was no going back. It felt like the world around me had gone still as I stepped out the door, leaving the house that had once felt like home behind me. Every part of me wanted to turn back, to fight for something that was clearly already gone. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't go back to that life, not after everything Olivia had done. The weight of her betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. It wasn't just the affair, it wasn't just the lies, it was the way she had treated me, like I was nothing more than an accessory in her life, there to serve her needs when it was convenient. I had been blind to it all. She had been slipping away for months, and I had been too focused on my own work, on keeping everything running smoothly, to notice. But I saw it now. I saw her for who she really was. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't care. The only thing I knew was that I had to get away from that place. I drove aimlessly, the streets blurring by, my mind racing with thoughts of Olivia and everything that had led to this moment. I couldn't stop replaying the way she dismissed me, the way she'd said I was weak, like I was the one who had done something wrong. Eventually, I found myself parked in front of a small, quiet cafe. It wasn't a place I normally went to, but it felt like a sanctuary. I needed space. I needed to clear my head. The car engine turned off, but I sat there for a few moments, just staring out the windshield. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might snap. I tried to remember what it was like before everything had gone wrong, before Olivia had changed, before the lies and the secrets started to seep into our marriage, poisoning everything we had built together. But it was hard to remember. It felt like a lifetime ago. I wasn't the kind of guy to wallow in self-pity, but sitting there, alone in the silence of my car, the weight of everything hit me harder than I expected. I thought I was strong enough to handle it, but I was wrong. I wasn't prepared for this kind of betrayal. I grabbed my phone from the passenger seat, needing something to distract myself from the flood of emotions threatening to overtake me. I scrolled aimlessly through my contacts, knowing there was only one person who would understand. My best friend, Jake. He had been there for me through thick and thin, and I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me or tell me to get over it. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. "Hey man, what's up?" Jake's voice was steady, casual, but I could hear the concern beneath it. He knew something was wrong. I need to talk, I said, my voice tight. Yeah, I figured that much. Where are you? He asked. I gave him the name of the cafe. I'm here now. I don't know what to do, Jake. I'll be there in 10, he said, and then hung up. I sat in the car for what felt like an eternity, trying to gather my thoughts, to make sense of everything. But nothing made sense. I kept thinking back to Olivia, to the way she had looked at me when I confronted her, like I was beneath her, like I didn't matter. I had never seen that side of her before. It was like she had become a completely different person, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Jake arrived a few minutes later, parking his truck beside mine. He got out, his expression serious, as he walked over to my car. When he opened the door, he didn't say anything at first. He just sat down beside me, letting the silence hang between us. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced them back. I wasn't going to cry. Not in front of him. Talk to me, man, Jake said after a long pause. And that's when it all came rushing out. I told him everything. How Olivia had been acting, how I had caught her in the lies, the affair, everything. I told him about the photos, the way she had brushed it all off like it was nothing. I told him how she had called me weak, how she had justified her actions, like it was all my fault. Jake didn't interrupt. He just listened, his eyes locked on mine as I spoke. When I was finished, I could see the anger in his eyes, the disbelief, but there was something else too, something I couldn't quite read. Man, I'm sorry, he said, finally breaking the silence. That's messed up. She's a real piece of work. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words sink in. I don't even know who she is anymore. I thought I knew her, but now, I don't know. I feel like I've been living a lie. Jake put a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm, like he was trying to ground me. You're better off, Ethan. No one deserves that. She doesn't deserve you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I could just walk away and leave all of this behind me, but it wasn't that simple. There was a part of me that still loved her, a part of me that wanted to fix things, even though I knew deep down that they couldn't be fixed. What do I do now, Jake? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How do I move on from this? He sighed, leaning back in his seat. I don't have all the answers, man, but you're not going to find them sitting here, feeling sorry for yourself. You need to take control of your life again. Take your power back. She doesn't get to define you. His words rang true, but they felt hollow. How was I supposed to take control when everything I thought I knew had been torn apart? I felt lost, directionless, and the pain was still there, gnawing at me like a constant reminder of everything I had lost. But Jake was right about one thing. I couldn't let her control me. I couldn't let Olivia dictate my happiness any longer. If I was going to heal, I had to do it on my own. It was time to start over. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, but I'll try. Jake smiled, his usual easy grin returning. That's all you can do, man. One step at a time. We sat there for a while, the silence between us more comfortable now. For the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe again. Maybe things were going to get worse before they got better, but for now, I had a friend by my side. And that was enough. It had been a few days since I had last seen Olivia, but the weight of everything was still crushing me. The pain of betrayal wasn't something you could just wash away in a few days or even a few weeks. It lingered, twisting inside me, reminding me every time I woke up that my world had changed in an instant. The quiet moments in the morning were the hardest, when the house was still and I could almost hear the echoes of our past, the memories of a time when I thought we were happy. But that was gone now, swallowed up by the reality of what she had done. Jake had been my lifeline during all of this. He had forced me to get out of my head, to stop obsessing over what had happened with Olivia and start thinking about what I needed to do next. He had told me that I couldn't stay stuck in the past, that I had to focus on myself for once. It wasn't easy, and I hated the idea of it first, but slowly I started to see things differently. One afternoon, a week after the confrontation, I decided to take his advice. I couldn't stay holed up in my apartment forever thinking about the past. It was time to start moving forward. The first step was simple: get out of the house. I found myself at the local gym, a place I had neglected for far too long. The equipment and the familiar buzz of people working out made me feel strangely grounded, as though I could reconnect with a version of myself that wasn't consumed by anger and disappointment. I hadn't been to the gym in months, not since Olivia and I had started drifting apart. I had let everything slide, focusing only on her needs and ignoring my own. But now I was alone, and it was time to reclaim my life. I was on the treadmill when I saw him, Ben. I hadn't seen him in years, but I recognized him instantly. Ben and I had been friends throughout high school, before life had taken us in different directions. He was the kind of guy who always had a smile on his face, a guy who could make friends with anyone. His presence felt like a breath of fresh air in a room that had been suffocating me. "Hey man," Ben called out as he approached, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Haven't seen you around in ages. How have you been?" For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. I felt like I had a million emotions swirling inside me, but I couldn't articulate any of them. But I couldn't stay silent forever. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and stepped off the treadmill, meeting him halfway. "I've been better," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "A lot has happened recently." Ben raised an eyebrow, sensing the seriousness in my voice. "You want to talk about it?" I hesitated. Talking about Olivia, about what had happened, still felt raw. I wasn't ready to dive into the details, not with him. But Ben was different. He wasn't just another acquaintance. He was a friend. And I needed someone who knew me before everything had changed, someone who didn't see me through the lens of my failed marriage. "Yeah, sure. Let's talk," I said, finally conceding. We walked over to the wait area, finding a bench where we could sit and catch up. The conversation started off light, with Ben asking about my work and how things had been going, but eventually it turned to what had been weighing on me the most. I told him about Olivia, the lies, the affair, the complete destruction of everything I had believed in. I didn't go into the details. I didn't have to. He saw the hurt in my eyes, the anger that I was still trying to contain. He let me speak, listening attentively, offering words of comfort when needed, but never pushing me to say more than I was ready to. "Man, I'm sorry," he said after I finished, his voice sincere. "I can't imagine what you're going through. But you know what? I've seen the way you've been handling this. You're stronger than you think." I shook my head. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm drowning. I don't even know who I am anymore." Ben gave me a knowing look. "It's normal to feel lost after something like this. But you're going to find yourself again. You just have to let yourself heal." His words were simple, but they hit me in a way that made me pause. I had spent so much time focusing on Olivia, on what she had done, that I had forgotten to focus on myself. I had forgotten that I had a life outside of her, that I was still capable of finding happiness, even after all the pain. We spent the next hour working out, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I lost myself in the rhythm of it. The sweat, the exertion, it was a release, a way to expel all the anger and frustration that had built up over the past few days. Ben kept pushing me, encouraging me to go further, to keep going. It was like he was helping me rebuild my strength, both physically and emotionally. By the end of the session, I felt different. Not completely healed, not by a long shot, but a little bit lighter. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. For the first time since I had learned the truth about Olivia, I felt like I was in control again. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't someone who had been discarded and left to pick up the pieces. "Hey man, I'm proud of you," Ben said as we cooled down. "You've got this." I smiled, a genuine smile this time, not one that hid the pain, but one that acknowledged the strength I was starting to rediscover. "Thanks, Ben. I really needed this." As I left the gym that day, I felt a sense of resolve settling in. I had a long road ahead of me, but I was no longer going to let Olivia define my happiness. She had made her choice, and now it was my turn to make mine. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but something inside me had shifted. I no longer felt like I was living in the aftermath of a wrecked life. I was moving forward, one step at a time, towards something better. The days following my gym session with Ben weren't transformative in the way some people expect, with everything falling into place, as if by magic. But they were necessary. I started to recognize the truth that I had been living for Olivia's approval, her validation, and that was the mistake. I had spent years trying to please someone who didn't even value me, someone who couldn't appreciate the effort I put into our relationship. And now, she had torn everything apart. It was a painful realization, but it was also a liberating one. I spent the next few days focused on myself, rediscovering old hobbies, catching up with friends, and going out for long walks to clear my head. I wasn't waiting for Olivia to come crawling back. I'd stopped hoping that she would somehow see the light and beg for forgiveness. I was learning to live without her, to find my own joy again. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. One evening, while I was sitting in a quiet bar, sipping a drink, and scrolling through my phone, I saw something that jolted me back into the harsh reality of my situation. A post on Facebook, Olivia. She had posted a picture of herself with her friend, the one she had been seeing behind my back. The post was innocent enough, just a casual photo of them at a restaurant, laughing, having a good time. But it was the caption that hit me hard. Living my best life. It was like a slap to the face, and for a moment I could barely breathe. The audacity, the callousness of it all. She was out there, living her life like nothing had ever happened between us. Like I had never existed. Like I was just a footnote in her story. I stared at the screen, my grip tightening on my glass. I had always known she was capable of moving on without a second thought, but seeing it in black and white, seeing her so blatantly flaunting her new life, was like a gut punch. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her for being so heartless, for doing this to me. But then something inside me clicked. Why should I care? I had spent so much time trying to hold on to someone who didn't value me, who didn't respect the time and love I had given her. I had been the one left holding the shattered pieces of our marriage, and yet she was out there, moving on with her life. That should have been my signal. The universe had already given me the answer. I needed to let her go. The more I thought about it, the clearer the decision became. This wasn't just about moving on from Olivia. It was about taking control of my life again. It was about rebuilding myself from the ground up. She had walked away, and in doing so, she had released me from the prison of our broken relationship. I had allowed myself to be a victim for too long, wallowing in the pain of betrayal. It was time to stop. It was time to embrace the fact that this chapter was over, and there was nothing left to salvage. The following day, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for a phone call or an apology that would never come. I wasn't going to spend another minute wondering what could have been or fantasizing about how things could have turned out differently. I was going to take the next step in my life, with or without Olivia. I packed a bag, not just of clothes, but of things that represented the old me, the things that had been pushed aside in favor of a woman who hadn't cared enough to fight for me. The pictures of us together, the mementos of our time as a couple, everything. I didn't need them anymore. They were just reminders of a lie. I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the remnants of what had been. It felt like a tomb. But as I closed the door behind me, it was like closing the door on an entire era of my life. I felt lighter, freer than I had in months. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a message from Ben or maybe a work email, but instead, it was a text from Olivia. "We need to talk." For a second, I just stared at the message. My mind was flooded with emotions. Anger, confusion, relief, but mostly apathy. I had spent so much time waiting for her to reach out, hoping that she would somehow want to fix things. But now, it didn't matter anymore. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to do this anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I felt no need to explain myself, no need to justify my actions. I had already been down that road too many times. She had shown me who she really was, and I wasn't interested in playing that game anymore. I dialed Ben's number, knowing that talking to him would be the right thing to do. He answered on the second ring. "Hey man, what's up?" he asked, his voice light, but I could hear the concern underneath. "I did it," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "Done with what?" "Done with Olivia. I'm walking away for good." "Good for you, Ethan," he said, his voice full of approval. "You deserve better than her, man. You really do." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in. "Yeah, I think I do." I hung up the phone, feeling like I had just taken the first real step toward freedom. I was no longer shackled by the past, no longer holding on to something that wasn't meant to be. The future was wide open now, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. It had been weeks since I made the decision to let go of Olivia, to walk away from everything that had once been our life. The days had passed in a blur of small steps forward, each one seeming insignificant, but slowly they started to add up. My phone had remained silent after I didn't respond to her last message, and honestly, I hadn't expected anything else. Part of me had been waiting for her to reach out, to apologize, to make it all better. But she didn't. And in the end, that was the closure I needed. The house, which had once felt like a prison, started to feel like mine again. I threw out everything that reminded me of Olivia: old clothes, photos, letters. I couldn't hold onto the ghost of what had been. I wasn't trying to erase her, but I was finally letting go of the emotional weight she had left behind. One morning, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, examining the man who stared back at me. It was the first time in a long while that I looked at myself with any kind of clarity. I had been so consumed by the past, by the heartbreak, by everything that Olivia had done, that I had lost sight of who I really was. But in that moment, I saw someone different, someone who had survived the worst and was still standing. I had spent so many years letting my identity be shaped by my relationship with her, letting her needs take precedence over my own. It had taken a brutal wake-up call to realize that I was more than just someone's husband, that I was my own person with my own goals, dreams, and aspirations. And now, I was free to pursue them. That day, I decided to take a trip. Not a vacation, not a quick getaway, but a journey of discovery. I booked a plane ticket to a place I had always wanted to visit but had never gotten around to. It wasn't about running away from my problems. It was about giving myself permission to explore, to grow, to experience life on my own terms. The next few days were a whirlwind. I packed my bags, called up some friends, and arranged everything I needed for my trip. It was scary, in a way, but also incredibly exciting. I hadn't done something for myself in so long. This wasn't about escaping. It was about embracing life again. The night before my flight, I sat at a small cafe in the city, watching the world pass by. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I glanced at it, half expecting a message from Olivia. But it wasn't her. It was a notification from a social media app, a picture posted by one of my old college friends. It was an old photo of me and my buddies, taken years ago, back when things were simpler. I stared at the picture, lost in the memories. It was a reminder of who I had been before all of this, before Olivia, before the heartbreak. I had been full of life, full of ambition, always moving forward. Somewhere along the way, I had lost that version of myself. But now I could see him again. I made a decision right then and there. When I returned from my trip, I wasn't just going back to my old life. I was starting a new one. I was going to focus on myself, on what I wanted, on who I wanted to be. I wasn't going to let anyone else's expectations or disappointments hold me back. It was time to rebuild my life, brick by brick, until I had something I could be proud of again. The next morning, I boarded the plane with a sense of excitement I hadn't felt in years. The world seemed wide open, full of possibility. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was moving towards something better, something new. The trip itself was everything I had hoped for and more. I spent my days exploring unfamiliar cities, meeting new people, and rediscovering passions I had long forgotten. I took time to reflect on what had happened with Olivia, but instead of letting it consume me, I used it as fuel to drive me forward. I didn't need her to complete me anymore. I was learning to complete myself. But even in the midst of this newfound freedom, I wasn't blind to the reality of what I had left behind. Olivia had hurt me. She had betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. But as time passed, the sting of that betrayal began to fade. The anger turned into something more manageable, something I could learn from rather than be controlled by. I wasn't going to carry that bitterness with me forever. It wasn't who I wanted to be. When I returned home, everything was different. The house felt emptier, but not in a bad way. It felt like a blank slate, ready for me to start over. I took stock of my life, my career, my friendships, my health, and I realized that I had so much more than I had allowed myself to see before. I began to make new plans, set new goals. I joined a local volunteer group, something I had always wanted to do, but had never found the time for. I started taking better care of my body, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and mental health. I even started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I wasn't waiting for someone to fix me anymore. I wasn't waiting for Olivia to apologize or for the world to change. I was changing. And just when I thought things were falling into place, I got a text message. This time, it was from a number I didn't recognize. It was a simple message. "We need to talk." My heart dropped in my stomach as I read the words. I knew who it was from before I even saw the name. Olivia. But this time, something was different. I wasn't the same man I had been when she first left. I wasn't the same man who had begged for answers, who had hoped for reconciliation. I had moved on. I had rebuilt myself. And now, I was ready to face the past on my own terms. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already made my decision. This wasn't about closure. It was about knowing that I didn't need her to define my future. I was the one in control now. I put the phone down, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. She moaned his name in my bed while I watched them, live on my phone. Same bedsheets we bought together. Same bedroom where she told me she loved me last night. And now? She was crawling on top of some tatted-up guy I'd never seen in my life. Laughing, pouring wine, telling him, "Don't worry, my husband thinks I'm at work." I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't rush home and catch her in the act. No, I hit record. Because this wasn't just cheating, this was theater. And I was going to give her an audience. You want to know how we got here? Let me show you. But first, let me tell you what I did with that video. Because trust me, you've never seen revenge served colder than this. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, imagining her voice whispering in someone else's ear. I knew what I saw. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an accident. It was planned, rehearsed. She even brought wine. Melissa wasn't just unfaithful. She was proud of it. So while she slept beside me, pretending the world was normal, I planned. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like always, said something about having a lunch meeting with her team. I nodded, didn't even look up, just muttered, "Have fun." She smiled like a fox in a henhouse and walked out the door in that tight gray skirt she knew drove me crazy. Except now, it made me sick. I waited 15 minutes. Then I called Eric again. "You still have that projector?" I asked. He laughed. "You're finally going through with it, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "And I want the whole setup, projector, big white screen, Bluetooth audio, the works. I want them to feel it." "When?" "This Sunday. Dinner with her family." There was silence on the line for a second. Then he said, "Damn, that's cold." "You haven't seen the video," I replied. I knew Melissa's family well. Her parents were the type to post family dinners on Facebook with long captions about love, loyalty, and God. Her sister, Rachel, thought Melissa was the gold standard of modern womanhood. The perfect marriage. The dream couple. We were always relationship goals on her Instagram stories. So I made sure to keep smiling that week. I let Melissa believe nothing was wrong. I even brought home flowers on Friday like I used to. She looked surprised, almost suspicious, but said nothing. She gave me a kiss that night and tried to drag me into bed. I couldn't do it. I told her I was tired. She rolled over without a word, didn't even bother to fake disappointment. That's when I knew her act was wearing thin even for herself. She wasn't even trying anymore. Sunday came fast. Melissa was buzzing around the kitchen, playing hostess like she was up for an Emmy. Her parents arrived at 6 sharp. Rachel and her boyfriend came 20 minutes later. Everyone was seated at the long oak table, passing mashed potatoes and clinking glasses. I was quiet, calm. I waited until dessert. She was cutting the pie, smiling like a queen, when I said, "I got a little video I want to show you all." Special surprise. Melissa's smile froze. "Video?" "Yeah," I said, standing. "Something I put together this week. Thought it'd be fun to show it on the big screen." Her father, Tom, chuckled. "You always were the techie one, Jake." I nodded. "Yeah, I like gadgets." Eric had already set everything up in the living room earlier that day. Melissa thought it was for football night. She had no idea the projector was connected to my cloud storage. One click, and the video started playing. The moment she heard her own voice say, "He thinks I'm at work," she turned ghost white. Rachel gasped. Her mom dropped her fork. Tom just stared. The footage ran for 2 minutes. Just enough. Her giggling. Him undressing her. Her whispering, "Be quick. I have to call Jake soon." No nudity. Just betrayal. Real. Raw. Unfiltered. She screamed, "Turn it off." "What the hell is wrong with you?" I stood by the screen. "What's wrong with me?" "You brought a stranger into our bed. You lied to everyone here. Every single person in this room thought you were someone worth loving." Her face contorted. You installed a camera in our bedroom. You're a psycho. I did. Because something felt off. And guess what? I was right. She stormed toward me, shoved me in the chest. Her mom tried to stand between us, but Tom just stayed in his seat. Melissa turned to him, hysterical. Dad, are you seriously just sitting there? He looked at me, stood, walked over, extended his hand. You handled this like a man, he said. Melissa's jaw dropped. Rachel stood in silence. Her boyfriend grabbed his coat without a word. Melissa ran upstairs, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I stayed downstairs, frozen, my hands still tingling from the firm shake. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream or punch a wall. I just breathed. She thought she had everything under control. She didn't know I was watching. She didn't know I was waiting. But now she knew. And this was just the beginning. The house was dead quiet after the video. The kind of silence that hums in your ears like pressure in a plane cabin. Melissa was upstairs, probably pacing, probably throwing things. Her perfect little empire shattered in front of the people whose opinions she worshipped. Good. Her father's words echoed in my mind. You handled this like a man. It was the only thing that kept me grounded in that moment. I wasn't sure what was supposed to come next. Was I supposed to pack her bags? Was I supposed to storm upstairs and scream until my throat bled? Was I supposed to cry? I did none of those things. Instead, I picked up the plates, one by one, cleared the table while her mother sat stunned and Rachel blinked like someone who just realized her role model was built on lies. You knew, her mom finally whispered. I looked at her. I suspected. I had to be sure. She lowered her gaze, her lips trembling. I don't understand. Why would she? I didn't finish the sentence for her. Because I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. I cleaned up the pie she never served. I stacked the dishes. I ran the faucet. Mechanical. Numb. That's what heartbreak does. It slows time, turns everything into a dull, hollow routine. Eric texted me just then. Eric, everything okay? I typed back. She ran. Her dad stayed. Shook my hand. Eric, damn. Eric, you want me to come over? No. I replied. Let me handle this. I was ready. She wasn't. At 10:47 p.m., Melissa finally came down. Her makeup was gone, her eyes red, hair a mess. She looked like someone who'd been screaming into a pillow for hours. She didn't say a word, just hovered near the stairs like a ghost afraid of entering the room she used to rule. I sat on the couch. You done hiding? I asked, not even looking at her. She didn't answer. You embarrassed? Good. That means you're still human somewhere under all that bullsh asterisk T. She took a shaky breath. Can we talk? Now you want to talk? Jake, please. You ambushed me in front of my whole family. I snapped. No. You don't get to spin this like I'm the villain. You don't get to beg for a conversation now that the masks are off. You weren't going to tell me anything, Melissa. You were going to keep sneaking around, playing the doting wife while getting railed by some gym freak on my damn mattress. She flinched. Say his name, I said. She blinked. What? Say. His name. She shook her head. You don't even know his last name, do you? Jake, it wasn't serious. I stood up, laughing bitterly. Oh, that makes it better. What was it then? A joke? A hobby? A new diet plan where you burn calories with some other dude? Tears welled up in her eyes. I messed up, okay? I messed up. No, Melissa. You chose this. Over and over again. Every lie, every cover story, every late shift you chose him. Don't call it a mistake. A mistake is burning toast. You burned a marriage. She sat down on the edge of the coffee table, holding her head in her hands. I didn't mean for it to get out of control. I stared at her. This woman I had loved. This woman who had shared my bed, my house, my name. You're not sorry for what you did, I said coldly. You're sorry you got caught. She didn't argue. Because it was true. I walked toward the hallway closet and pulled out the suitcase I'd packed earlier that day. Not for me, for her. I placed it in front of her. You've got two choices. You can take this bag and leave tonight, or I'll call your dad to come get you. But you're not sleeping here again. Not under my roof. Her jaw dropped. You're kicking me out? Just like that. Just like that. But this is my home too. No. It was your home. You turned it into a hotel room. And I don't share my bed with liars. She didn't move for a long time. Just stared at the suitcase like it might explode. Eventually, she stood. Where am I supposed to go? Go to work, I said with venom. Isn't that where you always are? She glared at me like she wanted to slap me. I wish she had. At least then I could have felt something. But instead, she grabbed the handle and walked toward the door. And just before stepping out, she turned around. You really think you're innocent in all this? You think you've been perfect? I smiled. No. But I never had someone else and called it a meeting. She left without another word. The door clicked shut. And just like that, the silence returned. But this time, it felt clean. Next came the rage. The what-ifs. The wondering how many nights, how many lies, how many versions of the truth she rehearsed in my mirror while I slept 2 rooms away. I wasn't healed. Not even close. But I wasn't broken anymore either. I should have gone to sleep that night, but instead, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where Melissa's wine glass used to sit during our Sunday dinners. She always took the one with the little chip at the base. Said it had character. Now all I could think about was whether he drank from it too. The house still smelled like her perfume. Vanilla mixed with something floral. Sweet, fake. Just like her. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a wall like some broken high schooler. I just sat there with this pulsing pressure in my chest, like something inside me was being squeezed tighter and tighter, but wouldn't burst. And then I saw it. Her phone. She must have left it in the rush. I stared at it like it was radioactive. Locked, of course. Melissa wasn't stupid. She probably changed her passcode weeks ago. Maybe months. Around the time her kisses started feeling empty. But something told me not to give up. She used patterns. Repeated habits. Every birthday, every PIN code, every password always had something to do with her sister or her cat or her favorite numbers. I tried Rachel 12. Nope. Lucky Cat. Nothing. And then it hit me. Her anniversary. Our anniversary. The date she used to tell everyone was the best day of her life. 060718. Unlocked. I should have felt victorious. I didn't. I felt sick. You ever open a door and immediately wish you could slam it shut and unsee what's inside? Her messages were full of him. His name was Travis. She called him T. She sent him voice notes. Nudes. Videos none saved, but the file names were there. missut.mov, tonightcrawl.mp4. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. The worst part wasn't the messages. It wasn't even the way she talked to him. It was how she talked about me. Melissa, he's so boring lately. Like a golden retriever that never learned how to bite. Melissa, I fake it every time. He thinks I'm still into him, lol. Melissa, if he ever found out, I'd just cry and blame stress. He's soft like that. That last one broke me. She didn't just betray me. She mocked me. She practiced her lies. She gamed me like a damn fool. And I loved her. God, I loved her. I should have deleted everything. But I couldn't. I took screenshots. Forwarded them to my email. Labeled the folder, closure. There was one message that stuck with me more than any. Travis, he'll leave you when he finds out. Melissa, then we'll finally be free. Free. Like I was a cage. Like being loved, protected, and cared for was some kind of prison. Like I was the problem. I looked around the house. Everything in that space, I built it for her. Custom kitchen island. Soft closed drawers. The mural in the hallway with her favorite quote. The hardwood floors she made me rest on because they were too orange. And all of it. For what? So she could play house while sneaking around like some giggling teenager with a burner phone and a backup plan? I copied every message. Every voice note. Every lie. I even found one from 3 weeks ago where she said she almost got caught. She wrote, Melissa, he looked at me weird last night. I think he suspects. I'm gonna cry a little tonight just to reset his brain. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go to wherever she was staying and throw the phone in her face. But I didn't. Instead, I wiped her phone clean. Factory reset. No backup. Then I tossed it into the trash with yesterday's leftovers. Let Travis call her now. Let him wonder why she ghosted. Let her feel what I felt. She took my trust and spit on it. Laughed at it. Used it like a shield while she played double life Barbie. Not anymore. I wasn't going to be the guy who drowned in his own heartbreak. I was going to rise from it. By morning, I had already called a lawyer. I wanted out. Clean. Legal. Permanent. She didn't deserve a slow goodbye. She deserved a silent one. I didn't expect to hear from her again, not that quickly. But Melissa was never the type to stay quiet for long. It was 2 days after I served her the divorce papers. I had them delivered to her sister Rachel's place, where she'd apparently been staying since I kicked her out. I didn't want to see her face. I didn't want to hear her voice. I just wanted closure, sharp and fast, like ripping off a bandage soaked in poison. That afternoon, I got the knock on the door. I opened it, already annoyed, already ready to slam it shut. But it wasn't her. It was Rachel. She looked uncomfortable, like she had stepped into a room full of gas and was about to strike a match. "She wants to talk," Rachel said. "Too late. She's not doing great." I crossed my arms. "Neither am I." She hesitated. "She's been crying. A lot. Says she made a huge mistake." I scoffed. "She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. Over and over again. For months." "I know," Rachel whispered. "And I'm not defending her. I thought maybe if you saw how wrecked she is." "Let me stop you right there," I said. "You saw the video. You heard the audio. You saw how she planned it. Laughed about it. Mocked me. She's not crying because she lost me. She's crying because she lost control." Rachel went quiet. I knew she agreed with me. Then came the second knock. I didn't need to guess who it was. Melissa stepped into view like a ghost dragging chains. No makeup. Puffy eyes. A hoodie that probably belonged to Rachel's boyfriend. Not her usual polished self. "Jake," she said. I didn't answer. Just stared. "I know I don't deserve to be here," she started, her voice shaking. "But I needed to see you." "You've seen enough of me," I said coldly. Usually from the rearview mirror while sneaking around. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Can we talk?" "Just let me explain." I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. "You get 5 minutes," I said. "And don't waste it telling me what I already know." She nodded, eyes glossy. "I was stupid," she whispered. "I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel appreciated. And instead of talking to you, like a grown woman, I chased attention from someone who didn't give a damn about me. I was selfish. I was cruel. And I ruined everything." I stared at her, stone-faced. She kept going. "I miss you. I miss us. I would give anything to go back and undo what I did. I don't even talk to him anymore. It was never real. It was never love. It was just escape." "You wanted escape?" I snapped. "From what? A loyal husband? A house you didn't pay for? A life you built on my back? You wanted a damn vacation, not an escape." Tears streamed down her face. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm begging you. Please don't make this the end of us. It already is." She sobbed. Loud, messy, real. But it didn't hit me the way it used to. I had cried enough for both of us. "You know what hurts the most?" I said, stepping closer. "You didn't just cheat. You enjoyed it. You bragged about it. You made me into some pathetic character in your little drama. And now you want me to pretend it was just a rough patch." She shook her head, desperate. I wasn't thinking straight. "No," I interrupted. "You were thinking exactly straight. You just didn't think I'd ever find out." Then I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and tapped the folder labeled closure. I scrolled to one of the screenshots, the one where she texted Travis, "If he finds out, I'll cry and play the victim. He always falls for it." I held it up. She gasped. Her face went white. "Is that what you're doing now?" I asked. "Running the same script?" "No. Jake, please, I didn't mean." "I don't care what you meant. I care what you did." And with that, I turned around and walked back inside. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just closed it. Because finally, for the first time in months, I was the one who walked away. And it felt damn good. Days passed, but the silence lingered in the house like a thick fog, choking any remnants of the life Melissa and I had built. The house felt too big now, empty in ways I hadn't noticed before. Every room echoed with memories of her. The scent of her perfume still clung to the couch. The picture frames on the walls seemed to stare back at me with her frozen smile, reminding me of all the lies that had come before. I didn't talk to Rachel after that. I didn't talk to anyone. I went to work, kept my head down, and threw myself into projects. The routine was the only thing that felt normal now, like the one part of my life I could still control. I stopped checking the news, stopped scrolling through social media. I didn't care what they all said about the perfect couple. The lies had been enough to last a lifetime. But it wasn't just the house that was silent. It was the city, too. Every night I came home, and there she was, waiting for me in the back of my mind, taunting me. I could hear her laugh, her voice. And in the quiet, it was harder to ignore the truth that I was now living in a nightmare I had never asked for. And then came the phone call. It was Thursday, and I was half distracted by paperwork when my phone buzzed. The number was familiar, but I hadn't seen it in days. Melissa. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Her name still felt like an anchor wrapped around my throat. But this time, something had changed. I wasn't the same man I was when I answered her calls before. I was stronger, and I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I answered, not bothering to hide the frustration in my voice. What do you want? Her voice came through, shaky and quiet. Jake, please. I rubbed my eyes, trying to block out the anger building inside me. Please what, Melissa? I need to see you. I snorted in disbelief. Now you want to talk? I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for you to take me back. She paused, the words hanging heavy in the air. I just need you to listen. I wasn't sure what I expected to hear, but the last thing I expected was her confession. I've been seeing a therapist, she said, her voice low and steady now. I know I messed up. I know I was a coward, but I'm trying to change. I don't want to be the person I was. You think a therapist is going to make up for what you did? I shot back. No, she replied, but maybe it'll stop me from making the same mistakes again. I almost laughed. You've had enough chances, Melissa. Every time you messed up, you promised it wouldn't happen again. And what happened? You did it again. I didn't know what else to do, she said softly. You were perfect, too perfect. And I couldn't handle it. I wanted more. I thought I wanted something else. I slammed my hand down on the table. And what did you get? A broken marriage. A man who trusted you, only to have you tear it apart for a cheap thrill. That's what you wanted. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could feel her trying to find the words, trying to explain, trying to take responsibility. But I didn't want her words anymore. Words didn't mean anything. Actions were the only thing that mattered. You know, Jake, she continued quietly, I've never been perfect, but I thought I could be better for you. I thought we could be happy. You had the chance to be happy, but you threw it away, I said, my voice flat. Another pause. Jake, I miss you, she whispered, as if the words were the only thing holding her together. I miss us. I miss you. Her voice cracked on the last word. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible now. I'm so sorry. I let the silence hang there for a long time, letting the weight of her apology settle over me. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and finally said, I can't do this anymore, Melissa. She gasped, as if I had just shattered everything she had left. But I had nothing left to give. This is over. You want to move on? Fine. But not with me. I ended the call before she could say anything else. That was it. No more excuses. No more hoping for a change that would never come. No more second chances. I had already made my decision. Now, it was time to live with it. It's a strange thing. When someone shatters your world, you don't just lose them. You lose yourself too. After the call with Melissa, I didn't feel relief. I felt hollow, like I'd finally put down a heavy weight, only to realize I had no idea who I was without it. For years, I'd built my identity around her. Around us. I was Jake, the husband, the provider, the fixer, the guy who always came home, who stayed loyal, who believed love meant sacrifice. Now, I was just Jake. Alone. I didn't tell anyone what happened right away. Not my friends, not my parents. Most of them had already heard whispers, of course. Rachel probably told her side of the story, and maybe Melissa spun her version too. But I didn't care. I wasn't trying to win sympathy points. I just needed to breathe. So I took a week off work. First time in years. Packed a bag, got in my truck, and drove. No destination. No plan. Just the road and silence. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt honest. I ended up in a small town about 3 hours north. A place we once visited on our second anniversary. Funny, isn't it? I thought it would bring pain, memories. But instead, it gave me something else. Perspective. I walked into the same coffee shop where she used to take photos of her lattes for Instagram. Same chip table. Same barista with the tattoo sleeve. But this time, I sat alone. And it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a restart. That night, in the cheap little motel room with flickering lights and a stained carpet, I looked in the mirror and really stared at myself. Not just at the dark circles or the tired eyes. I looked deeper. I saw a man who had been lied to, humiliated, dragged through the dirt. But I also saw a man who didn't break. I survived. That meant something. And in that moment, I realized something else. Melissa had never broken me. She'd only peeled back layers I had been too scared to face. She forced me to confront my worth. And as painful as it was, I was starting to feel something I hadn't in months, strength. The next morning, I deleted the folder labeled closure. Every screenshot, every voice memo, every photo, gone. I didn't need proof anymore. I didn't need reminders of who she was. I already knew who I was now. When I came home 3 days later, I didn't feel the dread I expected. The house still echoed with silence, sure, but now it felt like a canvas, not a tomb. A place to start over. I boxed up the photos, packed her clothes into bags, and left them by the door. Her lawyer would send someone to get them. That night, I cooked myself dinner. Steak, potatoes, and a whiskey on ice. Nothing fancy, but it tasted like victory. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I was healing. And then, just when I thought the storm had passed, she showed up. It was raining, classic movie timing, right? Melissa, soaked to the bone, stood on my porch with mascara running down her face like a sad watercolor painting. She looked like a ghost, like someone who had finally realized her chapter had been closed. I opened the door. Didn't say a word. She held something in her hand, a letter. Folded, soaked through. I wrote it, she said softly, because I knew you wouldn't let me talk. I took the paper, but I didn't open it. I'm not here to beg, she continued. I just needed to give it to you. Whether you read it or not, that's up to you. She looked so small in that moment. Not the defiant, smug woman from the camera footage. Not the manipulator. Just a broken person staring at the ruins of what she destroyed. I hope you find someone who gives you everything I couldn't, she whispered. And I hope you never have to feel like this again. I nodded. Not cold. Not angry. Just done. She turned and walked away. I never opened the letter. I didn't need to. After the rain stopped, I sat on the porch for a while, staring at that soaked letter in my hand. The edges had curled. The ink had started to bleed. I could barely make out the handwriting anymore. And honestly, that felt right. Her words had already lost their meaning long ago. I tossed the letter into the fireplace that night, watched it curl into ash. It didn't deserve to live in a drawer or sit in some memory box like it mattered. That letter wasn't closure. It was her last desperate attempt to soften the consequences of what she'd done. But the truth was, she didn't deserve to explain herself anymore. She had months to be honest. She used every second of it to lie. Burning it didn't make me feel better. It didn't bring some magical release. But it did make it final. In the weeks that followed, I got back to work. I focused on my body, hit the gym, cleaned up my meals, started sleeping more. The same hands that built a home for a liar now built something new. For me, I took a job restoring a house on the edge of town. It was run down, overgrown, water damaged. Just like me. But I fixed it. Room by room, I brought it back to life. It felt symbolic. I didn't go out much. I didn't drink to forget or chase women to prove I still had it. That wasn't me. I needed to rebuild the man inside before inviting anyone else into my world. But I did meet people. Real ones. Not couples pretending everything's perfect. Just folks living, struggling, moving forward. It reminded me that betrayal wasn't the end of the world. Just the end of one world. A better one could be built, brick by brick. Melissa never reached out again. I think she finally understood that some lines, once crossed, don't lead to forgiveness. They lead to exile. And maybe that's what she needed too. To sit in her own wreckage and ask herself why she lit the match. One night, months later, I ran into Rachel at the store. She looked relieved to see me. Told me Melissa moved out of state. Said she was trying to start over. I nodded. Then Rachel said something I didn't expect. She still talks about you. Says losing you was the only time in her life she felt consequences. I didn't say much. Just nodded again and walked out. That night, I sat by the fire, same one that had swallowed her letter, and thought about what I'd learned. Cheating doesn't just hurt. It humiliates. It makes you question your worth, your judgment, even your sanity. You replay every conversation, every smile, every "I love you," trying to see the moment the lie began. But here's the truth I wish someone had told me sooner. It's not your fault. You can love someone with your whole heart, and they can still choose to destroy you. That doesn't mean you were too soft. It doesn't mean you weren't enough. It means they were never capable of real love to begin with. They just liked what you gave them. Melissa didn't cheat because I lacked something. She cheated because she lacked character. She wanted the attention without the commitment, the thrill without the cost. And when reality caught up, she tried to spin the story one more time. But this time, I wrote the ending. So what now? Now, I live. Not bitter. Not broken. Wiser. I laugh more. I sleep better. I trust slowly, but I don't stop trusting. I believe in love, but I believe more in respect. I know my worth. I don't let anyone discount it again. If you're reading this because you're going through something similar, let me leave you with this. You don't have to burn your whole world down to heal. You just have to stop watering dead plants. Walk away. Rebuild. Don't wait for the apology you think you deserve. Sometimes, the best closure is silence. And sometimes, the best revenge is moving on. After my wife's dad's will was read, everything changed in 5 seconds. She sat across from me at the long oak table, still in her black dress, no tears in her eyes, just this smug little curve at the edge of her lips like she'd won something. And maybe she had. $3 million. That's what her father left her. And me? Nothing. Not that I expected anything, but what she said next, I didn't see it coming. Not like that. I'm done with your broke life, she said. I'm leaving for Hawaii with my young boyfriend. Then she looked me straight in the eye and smirked. I smiled. Just a twitch. Calm. Controlled. Then slowly, I set my fork and knife down on the plate, like I was finishing up the last bite of a good steak, even though I couldn't taste a damn thing. I stood up, adjusted my shirt collar, nodded, and walked out of the room without saying a word. That's where it started. 3 days later, the nightmare hit. But let's rewind. Just a little. Because it didn't start with the will. The will was the fuse. But the dynamite? That had been sitting under our bed for months, maybe years. I just didn't see it. Or didn't want to. Her name is Tiffany. Classic, right? Blonde. Fake nails. Bigger attitude than heart. When we met, she was all charm and fire, like danger dressed in perfume. I was a fool, but a happy one. She used to call me her rock, told me I kept her grounded. I guess eventually she got tired of solid ground. We'd been together 6 years. Married 4. She hadn't worked since the wedding. Said she wanted to find herself. What she found instead was an endless parade of gym memberships, yoga retreats, bottomless brunches, and boutique shopping sprees on my declining credit line. I worked maintenance at a high school. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but honest. I'd come home covered in paint and sweat, and she'd look at me like I brought some disease in the door. Somewhere along the way, respect left our house and didn't even leave a note. But I stayed. Like a damn fool I stayed. And still, I didn't think she'd ever do this. After the will reading, I drove back alone. She didn't even ask me if I needed a ride. Just vanished with her suitcase and that shiny new phone she never let me touch. It was already happening. That whole speech she gave, rehearsed, practiced, probably in the mirror while I was fixing her damn sink last week. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at the silent TV screen, trying to piece it all together. Was there a name? A face? Who the hell was this young boyfriend? At 2:47 a.m., I cracked. I grabbed her old laptop from the closet. She never used it anymore. Everything was on her phone. But something in me said, check it. She forgot to log out of her email. There they were. Hundreds of messages. His name? Jason. Barely 22. Met him at her spin class. They called each other baby, king, my addiction. I scrolled through dates. Photos. Voice notes. There were beach selfies I'd never seen, taken when she told me she was visiting her sick aunt. One video made my hand clench into a fist, her in lingerie I bought her, dancing in a hotel mirror while Jason filmed. She called him her real man. She called me dead weight. My heart didn't just break. It imploded, like someone vacuumed out the air from my chest. I shut the laptop slowly. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just sat back, arms on my knees, head low. This was war. But not loud, messy war. I was going to play it my way, cold, calm, methodical. The next day, I called in sick. I had something better to do. And by the 3rd day, as I watched the news unfold, local man found unconscious in beach hotel room after altercation. I knew I'd made the right move. Because Jason wouldn't be going to Hawaii. And Tiffany. Oh, she was about to get a taste of her own poison. I didn't plan to hurt him. Not really. But when I showed up at the Ocean Breeze Hotel and saw his rental Mustang parked out front like some damn trophy, something in me snapped. I wasn't even sure he'd be there, but luck, or fate, or whatever sick God was watching, put him in my path. Room 307. The concierge didn't ask questions when I slid him 100. Jason opened the door shirtless, wearing a gold chain and boxers with flamingos on them. His face dropped when he saw me. Not scared, just confused. Probably thought I was room service. Tiffany's not here, man. I didn't say a word. Just stepped inside. He backed up, hands out. Yo, chill, what's your problem? I grabbed him by the front of his stupid designer boxers and slammed him into the dresser. The mirror cracked behind him. I didn't throw punches. I didn't need to. The panic in his eyes was enough. I know everything, I whispered. He tried to speak, but his lip was bleeding now, and the words got stuck behind fear. You thought this was a game? You think you can crawl into my life, into my bed, and skip off to Hawaii with my wife like I'm just some discarded piece of trash? He tried to explain. Said she told him we were already separated. Said she lied to him. I didn't care. Maybe it was true, but none of it mattered anymore. I left before security arrived. Didn't even look back at the blood on the carpet or the broken lamp on the floor. I drove straight to my brother's house, crashed on his couch, and waited for the call. It came 12 hours later. Tiffany. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just cold, dead ice in her voice. You assaulted him, she said. No, I educated him. She hung up. The next day, she posted pictures from the airport, alone, waving at the camera with sunglasses too big for her face and a caption that read, "New beginnings. No more lies. Just me, sunshine, and peace." I wanted to laugh or puke, but I didn't do either. Instead, I sent her a message with a picture attached, one I found deep in her laptop files. Her, in bed, tangled with Jason, date stamped 2 months before the will reading. Thought you'd want to remember who you were before peace, I wrote. She blocked me within minutes. That should have been the end. But nightmares don't end just because you turn the lights off. 3 days later, I got a knock on my brother's door. Cops. Not for me. For Jason. Turns out, Jason had a record. A sealed one. Something from another state. Fraud. Assault. The cops weren't after him because of me. They were after him because he'd skipped court for months and used Tiffany's new fortune to vanish. But she didn't know. She didn't know she was flying off with a criminal who was using her for a passport out of his own mess. She didn't know he'd been siphoning off her bank account the moment she wired him access. She didn't know any of that until she landed in Hawaii and he was gone. Phone off. Cards drained. No goodbye. Just a receipt for a yacht rental and a trail that ended in the middle of the ocean. When she finally called me, voice shaking, furious, broken, I felt nothing. Not pity. Not anger. Not even satisfaction. Just silence. You knew, she said. You knew and you didn't warn me. I took a breath. You looked me in the eye, I said, and told me you were done with my broke life. Now you get to enjoy yours. Then I hung up. I didn't sleep that night either. Not from pain. From relief. Because for the first time in years, she couldn't touch me. She couldn't lie, twist, or break me anymore. And the best part? She did it all to herself. A week passed. I stayed quiet. No calls, no texts, no posts. Just the sound of my own thoughts echoing in the small guest room at my brother's place. He didn't ask many questions. He just handed me beers and kept the TV volume low. That's the kind of guy he is. Doesn't dig, doesn't judge. Just shows up when it matters. Then Tiffany showed up. Not in person. I wasn't that lucky. She started emailing me. Long ones. At first, it was rage, accusing me of setting her up, of ruining her life, of knowing everything about Jason and doing nothing. She called me a coward, a loser, a sad excuse of a man hiding behind other people's mistakes. Then the tone shifted. Begging. I didn't know, she wrote. He said all the right things. He made me feel young again. You stopped making me feel anything. She said she was stranded. That Jason had left her on a boat in Maui after draining 50 grand from her account. That she'd found his old messages to other women. That he called her temporary. That the yacht captain kicked her off at the next dock because Jason never paid the full fee. She was broke. And alone. She said she wanted to come home. Home. That word hit me harder than anything else. For her, home was just a soft place to land when everything else burned. For me, it was where I bled for this marriage, where I paid bills late so she could get eyelash extensions, where I worked double shifts fixing pipes so she could lounge on white sand and call it self-care. I didn't respond. She emailed again, said she missed me, said I was her real soulmate. *T. She had a soulmate. He just took her money and her passport and probably left her with a cocktail of regrets. 2 days later, she sent another email. No subject line. No text, just a picture. Her, sitting on a motel bed in a tank top, makeup smudged, tears in her eyes. Her hair was a mess. Not the glam mess she used to spend hours styling. This was the real kind. The kind that says you haven't slept or eaten or looked in a mirror without hating yourself. She was broken. And still, I felt nothing. That scared me a little. Because I used to love her. God, I loved her so much I'd lie awake at night hoping she'd just see me again. Talk to me like she used to. Let me in. Now. I couldn't even remember what that felt like. The final nail came a few days later. I got a call from her mother. Carol, the same woman who used to look down her nose at me every time I walked into their overpriced kitchen in my work boots. She sounded small on the phone. Ethan, she said, she's asking for you. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. She won't even tell me what really happened. Just keeps crying and saying your name. I rubbed my face. Took a deep breath. She left me for a 22-year-old scam artist, Carol. Told me I was broke and useless. You were there. There was a long pause. I know, she whispered. But she's still my daughter. And I was her husband. Then I ended the call. That night, I finally went home. The apartment was just like we left it. Her clothes still in the closet, half-used perfume bottles on the dresser, a few wine stains on the carpet I never got around to cleaning. I stood in our bedroom for a long time. Then I grabbed a box. One by one, I packed up every trace of her. Pictures, jewelry, that god-awful dream catcher she insisted we hang over the bed. Even the Polaroid of us from the day we moved in. I tore it clean down the middle. I didn't burn it. I didn't smash anything. I just packed it all away. Quiet. Final. Because she made her choice. And I was finally making mine. I donated her clothes the next morning. Didn't even flinch. Just loaded the boxes into my car and drove to a local shelter. The volunteer looked at me like I'd been through something, but didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. On the way back, I stopped at the diner near my old job. The waitress, Ava, still remembered my order. Black coffee, scrambled eggs, rye toast. No one judged me for sitting there for an hour staring out the window. I think they knew I needed that silence more than the food. Tiffany emailed again. This time, she said she was flying back. Her mother had wired her enough money for a ticket, but she had nowhere to stay. She asked me if she could come home, even for a night. I didn't answer. I waited. Then I opened the security app on my phone and changed the locks remotely. I watched the screen blink, lock updated, and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for weeks. The next evening, around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. Video doorbell. It was her. She looked hollow, like a ghost trying to pass as a person. Same tight jeans, different energy. The kind of energy that crawled out of a motel bathroom and realized she wasn't young anymore. That the world didn't owe her anything just because she was pretty. She knocked. Again. Then she rang the bell. Ethan, she called out, voice trembling. Please open the door. I'm not here to fight. I just need to talk. I didn't move. I watched her on the screen. I was stupid, she continued. He used me. I thought I wanted something different, and it turned out he only wanted what I had. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I was selfish, but I was scared. Scared that my life was shrinking, that I was becoming invisible. Then came the tears. Big, dramatic sobs. Like the kind she used to practice in front of the mirror before a fight. She slid down the wall and sat on the doormat. I don't have anyone left. You were the only person who ever really saw me. The only one who gave a damn when I wasn't shiny. I wanted to believe her. God help me, a small part of me still did. But then she said, can't we just go back to how it was? Before the money? Before him. And that's when it hit me. She didn't want me. She wanted comfort. Safety. A reset button. She wasn't here because she loved me. She was here because she'd run out of options. I picked up my phone and pressed the intercom button. You can't come back, I said, calm and steady. She looked up, confused. I saw the emails. I saw the videos. I saw what you chose. And I forgave a lot. I swallowed a lot. But you looked me in the eye and told me I was nothing. And now you want me to forget that? Ethan. No, I said. You chose your paradise. Swim in it. She stood, red in the face now. Angry. Humiliated. Her voice sharpened. You think you're better than me? You're still that same broke janitor. You'll die alone in this cheap apartment. I smiled slightly. I might. But at least I won't die a liar. Then I ended the feed. She kicked the door once. Then silence. A few seconds later, the app said she left. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I sat in the living room, lights off, just breathing. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. 2 days later, I got served. Divorce papers. Filed by Tiffany. It was almost laughable, her throwing the first legal punch after everything she'd done. But then I saw the demand inside. She wanted half of everything. Everything. The irony didn't even sting anymore. The apartment was in my name, the car barely ran, and the savings account had less than $1,000 in it. Half of nothing is still nothing. But the move itself? That was pure Tiffany. A final middle finger wrapped in legalese. My lawyer, a sharp, quiet guy named Marcus, skimmed through the paperwork, eyes darting like he'd seen this exact story 100 times before. She's not going to get anything, Ethan. She's the one who walked. You've got emails, timestamps, and a trail of financial independence. We'll shut this down fast. I nodded, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the nerve, and the part of me that still wanted to know why she'd even bothered coming back. The court date got set. A month out. Until then, it was radio silence. But silence with Tiffany never lasted. 1 week later, she showed up at my job. I was back at the school, fixing a jammed locker when I heard heels clicking across the linoleum. My gut tightened before I even turned around. She looked different. Polished. Too polished. Hair done, makeup perfect, designer sunglasses in her hand. But the look in her eyes, hollow. Like someone who was acting out the role of powerful woman, but forgot the lines halfway through. Hey, she said casually. I stood, wiped my hands on a rag. You lost. She smiled. Just wanted to talk. In a high school hallway? Thought it was poetic, she said, looking around. Where the hard-working husband keeps the school running while his ex-wife sues him for the spoils. I didn't smile back. What do you want, Tiffany? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I made a mistake. No, you made about 30 of them. Jason was just the finale. I was scared. I thought I was outgrowing you. I thought you'd never get anywhere. That I was stuck. And now I realize you were the only real thing I ever had. Her voice cracked then, but I didn't flinch. Are you crying because you miss me, or because your bank account is empty? She looked down, jaw tight. Maybe both. She reached into her purse and handed me a folded piece of paper. I canceled the divorce filing. You'll get the confirmation in a day or two. I took the paper, glanced at it, then handed it back. Keep it, I said. She looked confused. I'll file my own, I added. And I won't back out. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time, they looked real. But I was done. Completely done. No more games. No more second chances for someone who treated me like an option while calling herself the prize. She whispered, I don't know how to be without you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman I loved, but the shadow she'd become. Selfish, manipulative, empty. You should have thought about that before you chose someone else's bed over our life. And with that, I walked away. Didn't turn around. Didn't check if she was still standing there. Didn't care. Because in that moment, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was free. The divorce hearing came fast. 30 minutes in a bland courtroom with beige walls and a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Tiffany showed up wearing black again. Always the actress, like she was mourning something. I didn't bother dressing up. Jeans and a button-down were enough. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to finish it. Her lawyer tried to make a case. Claimed Tiffany contributed emotionally to the relationship. Claimed she supported me during hard times. I almost laughed. The judge didn't. He looked at her, then at me, then at the pile of emails, screenshots, financial records we'd submitted. Then he asked one question. Mrs. Parker, is it true that you voluntarily left the marriage and traveled with another man? She hesitated, then nodded. That was it. Everything dissolved in 10 minutes after that. No alimony. No split of assets. Nothing but a signature and a stamp. When it was done, she didn't even look at me. She walked out fast, heels clicking on marble like she was trying to outrun the weight of it all. I stayed behind, watching the ink dry on the papers that ended 6 years of love, lies, and slow bleeding disappointment. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cheap bottle of whiskey and a breeze I hadn't noticed in years. The city below me moved like it always did. Cars, lights, people chasing things they'd never catch. But I felt still, clear, like I'd finally crawled out of the wreckage and stood on my own feet again. A message came through. Tiffany. I almost didn't read it, but something told me to. It said, I'm sorry. I was broken before I met you. I thought love was something to take, not something to protect. You didn't deserve what I did. I just didn't know how to stop lying. Not even to myself. No plea. No manipulation. Just that. I stared at the screen for a while, then locked my phone and placed it face down on the table. She could be sincere. She could be full of shit. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I was done carrying her mistakes like they were mine. I was done blaming myself for not being enough for someone who was never whole to begin with. A week passed, then another, and with each sunrise, the ache in my chest turned into something else: clarity, maybe, strength, or just the silence of peace finally settling in. I started running in the mornings, cleaned the apartment top to bottom, sold the bed we used to share, got a new one, smaller, but mine. I saw Ava again, the waitress. We talked after my run, outside the diner. She made a joke about me finally ordering something besides scrambled eggs. I laughed harder than I had in months. We talked for an hour. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people breathing in the same air, sharing real things. That night, I didn't drink. I didn't check my phone for messages that weren't coming. I sat in bed and thought about everything. The betrayal, the lies, the way Tiffany tore me down without lifting a single hand. Just words, dismissals, cold stares in warm rooms. And I realized something. She didn't destroy me. She revealed me. She stripped away everything soft and naive and left the raw parts behind. The ones that could finally build a better life without waiting for someone else to do it. So here I am. Not healed, maybe, but clean. Burned down to something real. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Spring came. Faster than I expected. It crept in through the cracked window one morning, sunlight spilling across the hardwood like an invitation. The kind of morning that makes you feel like you could start over, like everything behind you was just the prequel to something better. I'd been waking up early. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My body didn't ache the way it used to. My head didn't feel heavy with regret. The apartment felt lighter. My silence wasn't empty anymore, it was calm. I used to wake up thinking about her, about the things I said wrong, or didn't say at all. Now I woke up thinking about what I wanted for breakfast. Ava and I started seeing each other more. It wasn't anything serious, not yet. But there was something honest about her. She asked questions and waited for the answers. She didn't play games. When she laughed, it wasn't performative, it was from her gut, the kind that makes you forget how long you've been carrying pain. One night, we sat in her car outside my building. Music low, windows cracked, her perfume mixing with the smell of warm leather and early summer. She asked me if I still thought about Tiffany. I told her the truth. Sometimes, but not because I miss her. I just replay moments, like a tape I'm trying to erase. She nodded, didn't press, just reached over and took my hand. No promises, no pressure, just presence. A few days later, I got one last email. Tiffany again. It started like the others. I hope you're well. Then she told me she was leaving the country. Said she sold what little she had left and was flying to Costa Rica with a man she met in group therapy. Said she was going to start over. No more lies, she wrote. No more running. She asked for nothing. Didn't even ask me to reply. Just goodbye. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was sad, but because part of me genuinely hoped she meant it. That she really was done lying. That she'd finally stopped using people as bandages for wounds she refused to clean. I didn't reply. She'd taken enough from me. And I'd spent enough of my life trying to heal someone who didn't want to be saved. Later that night, I took a walk. Past the park where we used to argue. The diner where I first told Ava about everything. The school I used to work at, now lit up for some evening event. Parents, kids, laughter. Life moving on like it always does. And then it hit me. It wasn't just Tiffany who changed. I had changed too. I stopped waiting. Stopped explaining myself to people who never intended to understand me. Stopped carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. What happened with Tiffany? It hurt. It broke things in me. But it also cleared the space for something new. Something I could build on my own, without walking on eggshells or begging for crumbs of love. So if you're reading this, and you've been where I was, holding on to someone who keeps slipping through your fingers, convincing yourself that love means endurance instead of peace, hear this. Let go. Not for revenge, not out of pride, but because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop bleeding for someone who hands you the knife. That's what I learned. And that's why I'm still standing. Summer settled in like an old friend. The kind that doesn't knock, just walks through the door, drops its shoes, and makes itself comfortable. The days were longer, slower, warmer in every sense. I was working part-time now at a small mechanic shop on the edge of town. Nothing glamorous, but good, honest work. My hands were always greasy, but my mind felt clean. Ava started coming by on her lunch breaks, bringing me iced tea and that smirk that said she knew exactly what she was doing. She never tried to fix me. She just let me be. And maybe that's why I started falling for her. Quietly, steadily, like a tide you don't notice until it's already wrapped around your feet. One night, we sat on my balcony again. Same spot where I once drank whiskey and stared down at the city, trying to make sense of heartbreak. Only this time, I wasn't looking down. I was watching her talk, eyes lit by the golden hour, lips moving around stories that made me laugh in ways I hadn't in years. She asked me what I would have done differently. About Tiffany. About everything. I took a breath. I wouldn't have fought so hard to keep someone who didn't want to stay, I said. I would have let her walk the first time she made me feel like I was disposable. Ava didn't say anything for a moment. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. You're not disposable, she whispered. And I believed her. A few weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a wedding photo of Tiffany and me, folded once through the middle like it had been handled too many times. On the back, in her handwriting, I never deserved the way you loved me. I hope someone else does. No name, no number, no forwarding address. That was the last I ever heard from her. I didn't keep the photo. I threw it into the river on a drive out of town, watched it sink, then stood there in the silence, hands in my pockets, wind on my face. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was free. That kind of freedom, the kind that comes after surviving a storm you didn't think you could weather. It doesn't feel loud. It's quiet. Still, like the pause after thunder, when all that's left is the sky finally catching its breath. Months passed. Ava moved in. One drawer turned into a closet. A toothbrush into a shared mirror. And just like that, the house started feeling like a home again. Not because of the furniture, not because of the routines, but because every part of it finally held someone who stayed. I never told her everything. Not all the details. Not all the dark corners Tiffany dragged me into. But I told her enough. And she never ran. One night, she asked me if I believed in second chances. I said yes. But not for the people who broke you. For the version of yourself you buried trying to hold everything together. That version, the one with hope, strength, fire, that's who deserved the second chance. And I gave it to him. So if you're still there, still bleeding, still staring at a door someone walked out of, let them go. Don't chase. Don't explain. Just heal. Then build something so beautiful with the wreckage that even you stop recognizing the ruins it came from. Because that's what I did. And it saved my life. It happened on a Sunday. Late afternoon, breeze rolling through the windows. Ava dancing barefoot in the kitchen while music played from her phone. Some old soul song I didn't know the words to, but she did. She spun, caught me watching her, and laughed like she hadn't been broken once too. That laugh. Man, it made everything make sense. I stood there holding a cup of coffee, thinking how strange it is, the path that leads you somewhere real. How it never starts where you think. Sometimes it starts in betrayal, in silence, in a look across a dinner table when someone tells you they're done with your broke life. And sometimes, that moment, it's the best thing that ever happens to you. I walked over, wrapped my arms around Ava's waist, and kissed the spot behind her ear. She leaned into me, like we were a puzzle piece that finally clicked. No lies, no games, no hidden inboxes or mysterious weekend trips. Just this. Real. I thought back to Tiffany only once that day. Just a flicker. A ghost of who I used to be, standing beside a woman who never truly saw me. And then I looked at the woman who did, and that ghost vanished. I don't hate Tiffany. I don't wish her pain. I just wish her truth. Because maybe then, she'll stop burning bridges thinking there's always another one around the bend. But me? I made it out. I crawled through the wreckage, bleeding and tired, and came out the other side not bitter, but better. So if you're reading this, standing in the ashes, wondering how it all fell apart, listen to me. You will survive. You will rebuild. And one day, you'll sit beside someone who doesn't just want the highlight reel, but all of you, even the bruises. And you'll be grateful that the one who hurt you did, because they made room for the one who never will. I was on the balcony, watching the city blink through the cold glass like it owed me something. The air had that heavy silence, like the kind that comes before a storm or a car crash you can't stop. That's when my phone buzzed. Just one vibration. One message. It was from Emily. It's over. I'm leaving for a real man who gives me the emotions I crave at night. My lawyer will handle everything with your money. No, hi. No sorry. No shame. Just a gut punch dressed up as a text message. It hit me like she slapped me from across town. I stared at the screen, reread it twice, then once more. The gall. The coldness. She'd said, "real man." That phrase alone crawled under my skin and carved itself into my memory like graffiti etched into a bathroom mirror. I didn't text back right away. No. I poured another drink, downed it like poison, and let the silence stretch for 10 long, bitter minutes. Then I typed, "As you wish." That was it. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I didn't beg. Instead, I walked straight to my home office, pulled out the folder labeled contingency plans, and clicked open my secure financial portal. One by one, I began freezing everything she had access to. Our joint accounts, her credit cards, the lease on her car that I co-signed. All the cards in her little game, flipped, burned. Within an hour, Emily no longer had access to a dime. The best part? She didn't see it coming. You see, for the past year, I had noticed cracks in her porcelain smile. The late-night showers. The second phone she swore was just for work. The way she suddenly needed space to rediscover herself every other weekend at overpriced Airbnbs with ocean views. And how she'd stopped looking at me like I was her husband and started treating me like I was an unpaid intern at her personal life experiment. I knew something was off, but I didn't expect this. She traded in our life for some cheap adrenaline with a guy who probably whispers lies into her ear while taking her to overpriced rooftop bars. And now she had the nerve to let her lawyer take care of everything with my money? I closed my laptop, stood up, and took one long look at the house around me. The home I built. The walls she once painted with dreams and fake affection. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a battleground that hadn't yet been declared. 3 days later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown number. Then again. I finally picked up. "Mr. Parker," a voice began. "I represent Mrs. Emily Parker. We need to discuss some urgent matters. She's asking if there's room for negotiation." I smiled, cold, satisfied. The same way a man smiles when he finally hears the sirens he called himself. "I already negotiated," I said. With silence. I hung up. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just another woman leaving a man for some temporary thrill. This was war. But the difference was Emily thought she was the one in control. She had no idea. And that was just the beginning. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't come like a thunderclap. It creeps in like a draft under the door, cold and unnoticed until you're shivering and wondering when it all started. I'd seen the warning signs with Emily, but I'd buried them under denial. Told myself it was stress. Work. Maybe even me. But now I was sifting through the wreckage of something I thought was real. After I froze her accounts, I sat back and started thinking, when did I first lose her? The answer came like a slow drip of poison. 3 months ago, she started saying she was exhausted after work, but her phone lit up like Times Square at midnight. She became guarded, defensive. Her phone, which used to sit screen up on the table, now lived face down like it had secrets. I remember once asking, "Everything okay?" And she rolled her eyes like I was being clingy. That's when the gaslighting began. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that only insecure men spy on their wives. So I didn't press. I gave her space, trusted her, even when it hurt to do so. That was my mistake. Because while I was protecting her peace, she was stealing mine. There was a dinner, some fundraiser for her job at the firm. I showed up in a tailored suit, fresh shave, heart full of pride to be on her arm. But Emily? She didn't look at me once. She spent the entire night locked in conversation with a guy I'd never met before. Tall, smug, probably used his reflection as a mirror. They laughed like I wasn't there. She called him Sean, said he was just a client. Yeah, right. That night, when we got home, she said she was too tired for intimacy. Said she had a headache. Said she needed rest. I slept alone while she scrolled through her second phone in the bathroom with the door locked. I remember the exact moment I knew. It was small, insignificant to anyone else. A perfume. That wasn't hers. And it wasn't mine. The scent was on her blazer. A man's cologne. Expensive. Sharp. Lingering. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I just watched. Watched as she got better at lying. She began to rehearse her stories. Where she'd been. Why she didn't answer my calls. One time she came home saying she had been visiting her sick aunt. Funny, since her aunt had passed away 5 years ago. When I asked which one, she stuttered. Made up a name. Then laughed it off like I was being too serious. The woman I married used to light up when I walked into the room. Now she flinched, rolled her eyes, or acted annoyed, like I was interrupting something more important. And maybe I was. Maybe I was interrupting a fantasy she built around this real man she texted me about, the one who gave her emotions at night, the one she felt alive with. But if he was so real, why was her lawyer calling me? That's what no one tells you about cheaters. They don't think past the thrill. They build their new life on borrowed time and someone else's money. Emily thought she was invincible, that I'd roll over, that I'd fund her fairy tale while she destroyed the one we'd already built. Instead, I set fire to it. Silently. Legally. Precisely. Now, I was done guessing. Done giving the benefit of the doubt. I had a plan, and I'd been gathering receipts. Literal ones. Photos. GPS logs. Call records. And soon, I was going to show her just how real I could be. Because if she wanted a man who played with fire, she was about to meet one who controlled it. It was a Thursday evening when I decided I wasn't going to wait anymore. I wasn't going to wait for Emily to come home late again with a weak excuse. I wasn't going to wait for her to slip up and confess. I wasn't going to let her humiliate me in silence another day. I was going to end the show my way. I waited until she walked through the door. Her heels clicked across the marble floor, a smug little rhythm like she owned the world. She was dressed to kill, tight black dress, fresh curls, too much lipstick. She looked at me like I was furniture. "Oh, you're still up," she said casually, tossing her purse on the counter like she hadn't just abandoned the marriage. "I was waiting," I replied, calm and sharp. "We need to talk." She groaned and rolled her eyes as if I'd just asked her to take out the trash. "Seriously? Nathan? No? I've had a long night." "Oh, I bet you have." That got her attention. Her eyes flickered for half a second, nervous. But then that cold little smirk crawled back onto her face. "You're jealous again. Aren't you tired of this insecure crap?" I stood up slowly, walked over, and dropped a manila envelope on the kitchen island. She looked down at it like it was radioactive. "What's this?" "Proof," I said. "Receipts. Hotel bookings. GPS records. You've been sloppy." She opened the envelope. Her face changed. Not panicked, but angry. "This is insane," she hissed. "You went through my things?" "No, I went through my things. Because my money paid for most of this mess." She threw the envelope across the room. "You think you're some kind of detective now? You've lost your mind." "No," I said. "I finally found it." Then I looked her dead in the eye. "I know about Sean." Silence. Her mouth twitched, but she didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. Instead, she laughed. Cold. Mean. The kind of laugh that could turn blood to ice. "Wow, you really were digging." I nodded slowly. "I know about the late nights, the lies, the burner phone. I know you've been seeing him for 6 months." She leaned back against the counter and crossed her arms, completely unbothered. "So what? What exactly are you going to do? Cry? Beg? Be a good little husband and keep paying for everything while I get what I need elsewhere?" Her voice was like a knife. But I didn't blink. "I already did something," I said. She frowned. "I froze every account you're tied to," I continued. "Credit cards? Gone. Joint savings? Locked. Your Tesla lease? Terminated. And that apartment you thought I didn't know about? Don't worry, it's not in your name anymore. Check your texts. Your lawyer probably messaged you by now." Her face, her beautiful, venomous face, went pale. "You're bluffing. Try buying your way out of it." Her phone buzzed right on cue. She snatched it from her purse and read the message. Her fingers trembled. You can't do this." "I already did." Her expression cracked. The first real crack. Like the mask had finally slipped, and the scared, selfish little girl underneath didn't know what to do. "You're insane," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped playing dumb." She threw the phone at the wall. It shattered, screen first. Then she looked at me like she hated me. Not because I hurt her, but because I wasn't weak anymore. "You'll regret this," she spat. I stepped closer. "You thought I'd beg. You thought you'd leave, and I'd still fund your fantasy. But Emily, you forgot who I am." And just like that, she left. No apology. No shame. Just silence and broken glass. But that silence felt like power. The next morning, the house felt like an empty museum, cold, still, echoing with ghosts that used to be love. Her perfume still hung in the air like a toxic reminder. The shattered phone on the floor remained untouched, a small victory frozen in time. I didn't clean it up. Not because I couldn't. Because I wouldn't. Let it sit there. Let it rot with the lies she fed me night after night while pretending we were still something. I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was burying an illusion. The silence was deafening, but it wasn't lonely. It was liberation. That morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I made coffee and drank it on the porch, no distractions, no anxiety clawing at my chest, no wondering who she was texting under the table. Just me, the sunrise, and the brutal peace of knowing the truth. Then the phone call started. Her lawyer. Again. And again. Voicemails piling up like junk mail, desperate, frantic, suddenly urgent. Mr. Parker, Emily would like to resolve this civilly. She's willing to discuss terms. She's in a very emotional state. Perhaps we can come to a compromise? Compromise? Where was that energy when she was sneaking around behind my back, treating our marriage like a layover between fantasies? Where was this concern when she laughed in my face and said I wasn't a real man? I ignored the calls. Then came the texts. Nathan, please call me. Can we just talk? I didn't mean for things to get so ugly. Ugly? She burned down the house and was shocked when she got cinched. By day 3, she was outside my gate, dressed like a victim, makeup running, voice trembling, Oscar-worthy. She buzzed the intercom. Nathan, please. Let's just talk. I watched from upstairs, arms crossed. There she was. The same woman who told me, through text, that she was leaving me for someone who gives her the emotion she craves at night. Now standing outside in designer heels, begging for a second chance. I didn't even pick up the intercom. Just watched her pace, cry, call out my name like we were characters in a bad soap opera. And I felt nothing. Not hate. Not sorrow. Just nothing. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never really was. I sat back and thought about everything, how easy it was for her to throw away our years together. How quick she was to degrade me, emasculate me, dismiss me as if I hadn't been the one building her comfort. And now that the comfort was gone, now I mattered? No. I thought about the moment she used to lie straight to my face. How confident she looked. How arrogant. The late returns, the fake meetings, the girls' nights that didn't smell like perfume but like aftershave and bourbon. It was all a game to her. And now that she lost, she wanted to change the rules. I finally picked up my phone, not to text her back, but to call my own lawyer. Proceed with the divorce. No alimony. No negotiations. I want the house, the stocks, and full control of the assets. She can keep the memories. I'm done. I hung up before the lawyer could even respond. Emily buzzed again. Then the intercom went silent. Eventually, she left. And I closed the curtains, not in sadness, but in relief. Because the worst part wasn't her cheating. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was how little I missed her now that she was gone. A week passed. No more calls. No more voicemails. Emily had finally gone quiet, probably realizing she no longer had leverage. Or maybe she'd run back to her real man, Sean. I pictured them sitting in some cheap loft, arguing over who's paying for takeout now that her platinum card was dead. I wasn't angry anymore. Just focused. I threw myself into the life I had neglected while trying to fix a woman who didn't want to be saved. Started hitting the gym again, cooking for myself, rebuilding my routines, without the weight of pretending everything was okay. That's the part they don't tell you about betrayal. It's strangely clarifying. You see everything sharper, colder, cleaner. One night, I was having dinner with an old friend, Marcus. He was the kind of guy who never liked Emily, said her smile didn't reach her eyes. You look good, man, he said. Lighter. I feel it, I admitted. He raised his glass. To losing dead weight. I smirked and clinked my glass. It felt good, like the first honest toast I'd had in years. But the peace didn't last long. 2 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. You think you've won? You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic. He left me too. You happy? It was her. Emily. Clearly spiraling. She tried to make it sound like anger, but I heard the fear under it. Sean had bailed. Probably once the drama got too real or the money ran dry. That's what happens when your relationships are built on thrill instead of substance. They collapse the moment life gets complicated. She was alone, and it terrified her. What followed was a flurry of texts, some begging, some threatening, some trying to gaslight me into believing I had caused all this. You pushed me away. You were never emotionally available. I made a mistake, but we can still fix it. Fix it? She shattered it. She threw the pieces into traffic and watched them get crushed. Now she wanted to tape them together because her backup plan walked out? That's the kind of woman Emily was. Not sorry. Just inconvenienced. Later that night, I got a call from her sister, Claire. Nathan, she said carefully, Emily's not doing great. She's staying with me for now. I stayed silent. She asked me to talk to you. Said she wants to see you. Said she wants to apologize. She had years to do that, I replied. I know. I just thought you should hear it. I appreciated Claire. She was nothing like her sister, grounded, decent, loyal. I knew this wasn't her mess to clean up. Thanks for the call, I said. But I'm done cleaning up after Emily's mistakes. I hung up, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilt. Didn't feel the need to be the bigger person. Didn't feel like explaining myself. She wanted freedom. She got it. But freedom without foundation is just falling. And Emily? She was in free fall. After I shut that last door emotionally and legally, I started to realize how much of myself I'd handed over without noticing. Years of being the provider, the protector, the fixer, and for what? To be thrown aside for a thrill she couldn't even keep? So, I started reclaiming myself piece by piece. First, the house. I redecorated. Not drastically, but enough. I took down the wedding photos and replaced them with artwork I actually liked. I got rid of the pastel throw pillows she insisted on and tossed the fancy china she never used. The place started to feel like mine again. Not ours. Not hers. Mine. Then came the garage. I pulled the cover off the project car I'd neglected for 2 years, an old '67 Mustang I used to restore on weekends before Emily guilted me into wine tastings and gallery events with people I couldn't stand. I got my hands dirty again, and I loved it. Each bolt I turned, each scratch I buffed, it was therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind she dragged me to where I had to sit across from a stranger while Emily played victim and twisted every argument into a monologue about how I wasn't present enough. It wasn't that I wasn't present. I was exhausted. I was fighting for someone who'd already checked out. One afternoon, I opened my inbox and found a message from my lawyer. Final paperwork submitted. Divorce will be processed in 2 weeks. Assets secured. No alimony. No contest. No contest. That meant she gave up, either out of shame or because she knew she couldn't win. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. It felt like escape. And that's when it hit me. I didn't want revenge anymore. Not really. I didn't care if she cried herself to sleep or moved on to the next fool. I didn't need to track her downfall or keep tabs on her failures. I was done. I started sleeping through the night again. No more checking the clock at 2 a.m. wondering where she was or if she'd come home smelling like regret. I stopped replaying the lies. I stopped blaming myself for not being enough. Because I was enough. She just wasn't worthy of what I offered. That shift changed everything. Even my friends noticed. Marcus said it best. You're not carrying dead weight anymore, bro. You're finally walking like your shoulders are your own. I began saying yes to things again. Drinks with friends. Weekend hikes. A trip I'd put off for 3 years. I even started talking to people, really talking. No filter. No walking on eggshells. I was myself again, and damn. I'd missed that guy. And then, one evening, I got an unexpected call. Hey, said a soft voice. It's Claire. Emily's sister. I'm not calling for her. I swear. I thought you should know something. I paused. Go ahead. She's moving. Some tiny apartment downtown. Looks rough. I think she's trying to start over. Good for her, I said without emotion. Claire hesitated. She's not doing great, Nathan. I sighed. Neither was I. For years. But no one noticed then. I noticed, she said quietly. She took advantage of your loyalty. I'm sorry for that. That surprised me. Thank you, I said. But I'm good now. Really? Claire didn't push. She just wished me well and hung up. And for a second, I sat there, not with pain, not with regret, just peace. Because the rebuild wasn't about getting back at Emily. It was about building a life she could no longer poison. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. It came in a simple email. Finalized. Official. Free. That last word stuck with me, free. Not because I'd been trapped by Emily's lies, but because I'd let myself believe I needed her. That we were a team. That the years we spent together had value she would never throw away. But she did. And now? I was better for it. What came next surprised even me. I started running again. Early mornings. No headphones. Just the sound of my feet against pavement and my breath sinking with sunrise. There's something sacred about solitude when you're no longer running from silence, but into it. One morning, while passing the park near my office, I ran into an old colleague, Rachel. We'd worked on a nonprofit fundraiser years ago, and I remembered her being smart, fiery, real. The kind of woman who looked you in the eye and told you the truth. Nathan, she asked, pulling her earbuds out. Wow, I almost didn't recognize you. Guess that's what a few pounds of dead weight does to a man, I grinned. She laughed. Not the fake polite kind I'd gotten used to with Emily's friends. This was genuine. We talked for half an hour, both sweaty and winded, but it felt natural. She wasn't prying. She wasn't pitying. She just listened. Before we parted ways, she said, "Let's catch up sometime. Coffee." And just like that, I said yes. Not because I was trying to replace anyone. Not because I wanted to prove something. But because I was curious again. Open again. Alive again. The next few weeks were a quiet rebirth. I started doing things for me. Simple things. Cooking real meals. Reading books I actually liked. Taking trips with no itinerary. And everywhere I went, I noticed something strange. I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. I wasn't waiting for drama. I wasn't bracing for betrayal. I was at peace. One night, I sat in the garage, polishing the Mustang's chrome bumper, and it hit me. This is what healing looks like. Not grand speeches. Not fiery revenge. But peace. Stability. Being proud of the life you live without needing someone else to validate it. Emily had called once. I didn't answer. She left no voicemail. Just her name blinking on the screen like a memory I'd already deleted. I let it go. That call didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she no longer had a place in my mind. No more fantasies about closure. No more daydreams of her regret. Whether she was crying herself to sleep or dancing on a yacht with some other fool, it wasn't my business anymore. She lost her access. One night, Marcus and I were at a rooftop bar, catching up over drinks. He leaned back and looked at me for a moment. "You know, you're not just back to who you were. You're better." "Better how?" I asked. "You've got scars," he said. "But now, you're wearing them like armor, not wounds." I nodded, letting that sink in. He was right. Emily had broken the version of me that was built to please, to endure, to fix. But in doing so, she revealed the man who didn't need fixing. A man who could walk away with his dignity, even when someone tried to bury it. And now? Now I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. And damn, it felt good. I used to believe heartbreak was this loud, cinematic moment, like something out of a movie where the guy falls to his knees in the rain and screams at the sky. But the truth? It's quieter than that. Heartbreak is standing in a kitchen full of memories, realizing the person you loved wasn't real, not the way you thought. It's seeing their side of the closet empty and not feeling sorrow, but relief. It's learning how to breathe again without asking yourself what you did wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. That was the hardest truth to swallow. Because for so long, Emily had me questioning everything. If I worked too much, I was neglectful. If I stayed home, I was clingy. If I asked about her day, I was prying. If I didn't, I was emotionally distant. I kept adjusting, reshaping, trying to fit into this mold that she claimed she needed, when really, all she wanted was someone to blame. It was never about me. It was always about her emptiness and how she tried to fill it with chaos. Now, with distance, I see it all clearly. Emily wasn't in love with another man. She was in love with the idea of escaping. And when real life showed up, bills, accountability, commitment, she ran. Over and over again. And now? She's running in circles. Meanwhile, I'm building something. Something real. Steady. Honest. Rachel and I did go for that coffee. And then another. And another. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who'd both been through storms and were finally enjoying the sunlight. She didn't need saving. And neither did I. We just talked. Listened. Laughed in ways that felt earned. And it made me realize how much I've been missing. Love isn't about fireworks and drama. It's about presence. Respect. Consistency. Emily treated me like a stepping stone. Rachel treated me like a man worth knowing. It's not about jumping into something new to numb the old pain. It's about remembering who you were before the damage and growing beyond it. And if anyone's reading this, any man going through that storm right now, let me leave you with this. You don't lose when she walks away. You lose when you chase after someone who spit on your worth. You don't owe her your pain. You don't owe her another explanation. You owe yourself peace. Freeze the accounts. Lock the doors. Let the silence fall. Because the man who survives betrayal isn't weak. He's forged in it, hardened by it. And eventually, he rises not bitter, but better. So here I am. Not a victim. Not a cautionary tale. Just a man who walked through the fire and came out flame-proof. And to Emily, if you ever read this, thank you. Not for the heartbreak, but for the lesson. You taught me exactly what I will never settle for again. And in doing that, you set me free.